I mean, how about in your area? Has there been a lot of, reports of missing people? I know,
On
I just, that like in the U.S. park system, since 1900 to I think like 4 years ago, they had like 14,000 people disappear. They went into the national forest and just never came out. How about people in your area like that? I mean,
Unfortunately, yes, there is a number of missing people, and it's the oddest thing. Now, one of the things about the FBI and all these sites that report missing people, they've taken down a number of those sites. You're not going to get the, not that the numbers were accurate to begin with, but what they were reporting, at least up until a little past the year 2000, you were going to get some type of estimate. Wow, this is really strange. But here in New Mexico, northern New Mexico, specifically east of Santa Fe, in the Pecos area, there has been a number of missing people. And the place has the slang name of the Pecos Triangle. And it's not really a triangle as far as dimensions go. I guess at one time it could have been, if you want to look at point A to point B to point C. But the reason it's called that now is because it's like something out of the Bermuda Triangle of people that just vanish without a trace. And this is not an exaggeration. This is like in the thin air. And there's been numerous people that have disappeared up there. You've had fantastic searches, be it with, ground, putting out sweepers, search and rescue, the authorities, the police, state police, county, city, volunteers, Cessnas, Hueys, people on horseback, tracking dogs, and they don't find anything with these people. Now, on the website, I have done a lot of research, been involved in different searches, and you'll see a lot of information concerning that. And I'll repeat the website so people can, as they're listening,
yeah,
they
please
can
do.
at the photos. It's Santa Fe Ghost and History Tours.com, or just plug in Allan Pacheco, and that'll get you to the website. Now, I'm going to tell you one story here of one of the missing that is just baffling. It's like Ambrose Bierce-esque. There was this guy, his name was Mel Nadel. He was nobody's fool. And I've described him before in the past, but he kind of looked like Terry Hanratty of the Pittsburgh Steelers of the early 70s. Not Terry Bradshaw, but he had that Ringo Starr-type haircut. And this happened, I'm going to say, 6 years ago. Okay, yes, he was successful. He had a gym. How do you pronounce that? Pilates. He also had a jewelry store, happily married, teenage daughter, black belt in karate. He goes on up into this area of where people disappear, the triangle there. And there's a place called Elk Mountain. Now, this is not going to be the Congo jungle or Vermont up there by the Canadian border with, just triple-layer canopy trees. He goes on up there with two of his friends. They're going to do hunting. So his friends set up their tents there about 25 yards off of the road there. And mind you, this area where they're at, yes, there's trees, but there's fields, there's trees, and at the top of the mountain is this repeater station. In other words, that place is just crisscrossed with roads. It's been in use since back in the days of the Spanish conquistadors in the 1540s, and before that with the Pecos Indians at the Pueblo. So the friends set on up. There's these two tents. The vehicles are parked there. It's not really roughing it. It's not Maharaja, but it's easy stuff. So tells his two friends, go on out and get your elk. I'll build a blind, and if something comes on by, I'll take it on out. Now, this is September, and, of course, the weather's not bad in September here. So his two friends go on out, and they come back around dusk, and there's his vehicle still there, but there's no Mel. So they crank off some rounds, and no response. So they have some air horns, no response. So they get a hold of the authorities, and the authorities have to wait X amount of hours because maybe he ran on off with a sultry singer, who knows what. That's the way the law goes. So I don't know if it's 12 hours, whatever it is, 10 hours. And after that, the search commences. And there was many, many, many searches. Even after the abandoning of the search by the authorities, there was still searches on up there. And this is the unique thing about this, is that they find Mel's tracks leading roughly about 120 yards away from the camp. And they just truncate. In other words, he does not walk back on his tracks. Now, there are no predator tracks around him, no bear tracks, no mountain lion tracks, no nothing. There's no spent casings. There's no sign of a struggle. There's no ripped clothing. There's no other human footprints. There's no blood. There's no clothing. There's no nothing. He just disappears right there. And none of his bank accounts were ever touched. No trace of the man has ever been found, be it clothing, bone. Again, the cliche, vanished into thin air. And that's just one of the people that have disappeared up in this area here.
Now, has there been any sightings of UFOs or anything to change the subject in that area at all, or anything strange?
Yes, a lot of strange things on up there. Yes, has been UFO activity on up there. There has been, and I'm talking about craft in the sky. There's also been. And mind you, I've seen this. And there's also been strange lights above the trees. Now, these are not somebody with a torch throwing it out and up in the air, or a sparkler, or something that just one, then there's two, and then they disappear. That place has sightings of ghosts, La Llorona, UFO. That place is a paranormal area. And again, too, Mel is just one of a number of people that have disappeared on up there. And here's something I'm going to say, too, about this, is that I have come to the conclusion that the government is either, the Black Ops is either watching what's going on up there, or they're doing something on up there with this kind of activity on up there. Now, mind you, the vast majority of people in government are just, drones, and they'll just go through. They don't have a clue about what's going on. But there is something that is just not right on up there. And again, too, for somebody to get lost in these areas, there's natural landmarks. This is not Tibet. This is not the Himalayas. You're going to be walking. Eventually, you're going to come across a dirt road that's going to lead you back to a house, to Pecos, to it's of all the places to get lost, that's virtually impossible. And I've put some stuff on the website so you can see exactly what kind of terrain it is. And again, this is not where you have to use a machete to cut your way through it. Eventually, you're going to get to a clearing. You're going to be found. It's so for these things to happen, it's like something that Rod Serling would have talked about in the late 60s, early 70s of the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah. Is there many mines or anything like that where he could have maybe fell into a mine shaft or something that is not documented? You just, I know up in Auburn, that little town I was telling you about, that was existent. They finally got really smart and found some of the shafts and covered them. But there was a bunch of people went up there, just wanting to look at what was left of it. It disappeared. And the problem is some of those shafts were like 600 feet down. And, so I don't know if there's anything like that in that area.
Well, there are some shafts on up there. There are some mines built into the hills on up there. But mind you, the tracking dogs, the searchers, there's no tracks of anybody going to these areas. In other words, the scent, the tracks, they just end. So it's not as if this woman is going to go and fall into a mine shaft. There's nothing there leading to these areas there. Now, as far as mines go, now I've gone through that area and I've explored it since a zillion years ago. Now, I do know there are some mines, but they're into the side of the hill. In other words, you're going to have to go into a tunnel. It's not going to be like a drop shaft that you're going to find out there in the Ortiz Mountains or in Madrid, where at one time you would have a ladder going X hundreds of feet down into the ground. These would be into a hill. So as far as somebody dropping into a mine shaft on up there, yeah, it's possible, but the odds of that happening are, less than 1%, let's just say. And then with all the searching that's been done, for example, this one woman who disappeared, her name was Emma Tresp. They found her car on this dirt road. And there's some things about the police report that I don't know if I believe about the car. Now, I've been to this spot exactly where she disappeared because her family left a stone or concrete angel there to mark her disappearance. But her car, there was footprints around her car. There's no footprints of her car going on up the road, down the road, or into the trees on the side of the road. I mean, she just vanished. She did not leave. And she was a experienced traveler, been all around the world. She was on her way to do a retreat at this Catholic monastery in Pecos. She'd been there before, I guess a few times before, minimum. So she knew the terrain. Why she went up this dirt road, and she didn't even leave in lipstick, where she's going or what happened. None of her money was touched. None of her bags, or I should say suitcases, were gone through. Again, too, this is something like Ambrose Bierce and some of his stories of the man who disappears in the field there in, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or other stories of that ilk.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, I mean, how about cattle? Anything strange around that area with cattle disappearing or having any surgical stuff done to it or anything strange, unaccountable or anything like that?
Yes. Again, in this area, that's another major mystery that is unsolved, and that's they call it cattle mutilation. And what ranchers are finding in pastures, a cow, sometimes it's usually just one. Sometimes there's a few that have been, in essence, killed, and there's no sign of a struggle. Whatever kills this cow fast. And when I say a few, then a couple days later, another one's found dead. And what happens with these cows is about 90% of their blood is drained from them, and their sexual organs are removed. And it's not as if somebody's got a butcher blade and cut and mutilated the cow. It's as if the wounds are cauterized. In other words, if you've ever, those are the people that are listening, when you butcher a cow, there's blood all over the place, no matter how careful you are. There's not blood on the wounds of these cows. They've been, in other words, it's like surgical, laser-like precision. And in the front of the chest of the cow, there is a tiny slit where the heart of the cow has been taken on out. Also, in the rear end area of the cow, it has been cored on out.